Today we're going to be speaking about how digital marketing agencies can work very effectively with traditional marketing agencies. We formed tSunela in 2006. We actually met at Brighton, and while we were there, we quickly realized that there was a need for digital marketing. We were the lead of the group, the digital marketing, and all of our traditional clients were starting to go away. We went out one day, pitched a very large piece of business, came back and thought, we could do this on our own. So we started about 11 years ago. We have nearly 30 years of combined marketing experience. We provide internet marketing strategy to organizations of any size and any industry. However, we really love healthcare, legal, and higher education. Not to say we don't like any of our other clients, but those are ones we specialize in and love it very much so. So some of the things we do at tSunela are search engine optimization. You may hear it called SEO. We also do paid search marketing. You might also hear it called PPC. We do web analytics consulting, and we also do social media management. So Keisha's going to kind of jump in and talk a little more about advertising agencies, and we're going to give you some great tips on how to work together and why it could be a very mutually successful partnership.
We have a lot of traditional agencies, digital creative agencies that we partner with. Either the client is already working with a larger agency or a website design company, and then they bring us in, or we actually have sought out partnerships, and we have had traditional companies come and seek us out to help them broaden their services. Just the current state of the industry, what we're seeing is that client budgets and their departments are much leaner than they were 10 years ago. However, they are expecting more for their dollar. They're expecting everything to be tracked. They want to know the return on investment of their campaigns, and also speed. They want a very quick turnaround on pretty much everything, and that's necessary in today's market, because the consumers control so much of the communication, so much of the conversation, that if you're not fast and you don't get out there really quick, then you have missed the conversation entirely. So speed is of essence today, given the way the internet is and the way that the consumers control the conversation. I think we all know what a traditional agency is versus a digital agency. Traditional is everything that we did in terms of marketing and advertising before the internet. And digital is everything that is on those electronic devices. Also, in terms of traditional and digital, as I mentioned, clients are expecting us to be able to measure things, to measure return on investment. Now, when it comes to digital marketing, that came naturally. From the very beginning, from its very conception, we were able to track. Even from the very beginning of email campaigns, those annoying pop-ups that some of you are probably too young to even remember. So we were able to track all of that. Back then, it may have been much more limited in the numbers that we had. We may have only been tracking hits, which is something we don't even track nowadays. We track clicks and visitors. But we have been able to track digital from the beginning. Traditional, as you know, has always been very difficult to track. It's really hard to know how many people saw a billboard ad or how many people called you from hearing a radio ad. It's very traditionally and generally hard to track those campaigns, so digital can actually come in and help us some of that, which we'll get into a bit later. So in terms of the partnerships, in reviewing our presentation this morning, I actually told Joanna, I was like, you know, a lot of this seems kind of basic, seems kind of no-brainer stuff that we're going through. It's just basic relationship management. And she pointed out, well, if it was a no-brainer and it was so easy and everybody did it, well, then we'd have lots of really successful relationships with our traditional agencies. And that isn't really the case. So it really is, building these relationships with other agencies is like building a relationship, you know, interpersonal relationships or a friendship. It's the same thing. It is time consuming, and it does take time to find that right person. So in terms of the traditional side, if you are a traditional agency, you may be asking yourself, well, why do I need to partner with a digital agency? I could just bring it in-house. Well, first off, if you bring it in-house, that's a lot of cost. It's a big commitment to actually bring someone in, train them, have that learning curve, have that ongoing salary and the benefits that you have to pay. Versus if you partner with a digital agency, it's much more flexible, it's much more cost effective because you're only paying them for the projects that they work on. It's flexible in terms of you're working with their team, they get to do the hiring, and if they need more personnel to handle the project. Also, bringing on another digital or bringing on the digital agency can give you a different perspective on all the things that you've been doing. I know that earlier we were talking about branding and even the websites. Bringing on another agency will give you a new look at things. You know, is what we've been doing for the past 5 years for this client actually working still? And unfortunately, a lot of times though, when we come in and offer that fresh perspective, sometimes that does raise their hackles. They get a little bit defensive. So in terms of those traditional agencies, we just say, look, we're not trying to step on toes. We really are just collaborating and trying to say, hey, look, maybe we can just enhance what you're doing, make it a little bit more effective for the client. And then lastly, we can help you actually measure the return on investment for your campaigns. So we've come up with a lot of creative ways to help traditional agencies measure billboard ads, print ads, and radio ads using digital means and also helping them to track phone calls. So those are things that, given that all of that is basic and ingrained in digital marketing, we have found ways to actually transition that over to traditional means and help these agencies really prove that what they're doing has been working for the client. In terms of the agency relationships, we came up with just 5 simple ways that a traditional agency and a digital agency can better collaborate together. And again, to me, these seem kind of like no-brainers. First, share. We come in a lot of times with traditional agencies and they feel like they have to keep things secret from us. They keep things hidden. I guess maybe it makes them feel as though they have one up on us. But the client really should be the focus. What are we doing for the client? How well is that client moving forward? Is what we're doing working? Because really, if what we're doing doesn't make the client money, they're not going to use either one of us going forward. So we need to share. That would be research, data, any plans or strategy that you've done. Even if it goes as far back as 3 to 5 years, we still want to know what has been done for this client traditionally, because again, we are very data centric. We can learn from anything that has been done to improve things going forward. And skipping ahead to number 3, which is somewhat related, is review those strategies with all of the partners and all of that, and before talking to the client. So share this information upfront and ongoing. And it's very important to do that, because otherwise you could be going in and saying contradictory things, and then the client's like, well, which one do I go with? They might start to pick a favorite, which is usually us. And so you want to make sure that you're sharing that information before you present to the client, because going in and saying 2 different things really, again, doesn't work for anybody. And at the beginning of any project, make sure you're providing detailed timelines. And this is extremely important to just, get away from any of the unnecessary extemporaneous emails and phone calls that we get saying, when am I going to get this? When is that going to be delivered? So this is really something that both the digital agency and the traditional agency need to provide, as well as in some instances the client. So we all need to be on board with when are things going to be delivered, what's going to be delivered, and how is it going to be delivered. And if things change there, obviously let everybody know. So make sure that those are very realistic deadlines. Also clearly define the roles of both the agencies and their team members. So starting with the agencies, it's really important because we have come in and had partnerships with some traditional agencies that do social media. They do some of what we do. They do social media management, and they do it well. They do the content development. We don't want to step on toes. So for them to upfront tell us, hey, we do this, we handle this for the client, so you stay out of that part, that helps us to really clearly define what we're doing, and then when we go in and talk to the client, we aren't overstepping our bounds. So it's really important to clearly define the roles of the agencies. And then, of course, the members within those agencies. So clearly defining who the team lead is, who you contact for what piece of information, because otherwise you're contacting the entire team, and then we all have all these emails that we really don't want to comb through. Keep focused on the client and what you're doing for the client, and not the other agency. And again, it goes back to, again, it seems kind of no-brainer to me, but we aren't competing. We aren't trying to steal your business. We're not trying to steal that client from you. We're really just trying to make things better for the client. We're trying to help you measure the campaigns you're currently doing to actually prove that you should have more marketing dollars next year. So don't be focusing on that other agency and what they're doing. everybody needs to focus on the client. In terms of our relationships with traditional agencies, and I guess this would go across the board for any digital agency, if you are a traditional agency, some of the things that you can go to digital agencies for. And the top 3 for us are in order. We are most often contacted by traditional agencies to help them with paid search marketing and remarketing campaigns, search engine optimization, and local search engine optimization. And just to note on those two, those are 2 separate things. I know they seem somewhat similar, but they are run by 2 different algorithms. So we do consider those 2 separate services. They are very different in how they're implemented. And those are the top 3 that we are currently contacted by traditional agencies for. Also, online display advertising, so those banner ads that a lot of people do not click on, but they are really good for branding. A lot of times those display ads, again, we don't do the creative portion. We work with the other agency. They create it, but we do consult on what our best practices in terms of the creation of that ad. Yeah, so when we come in, we're looking at the client as a whole, especially when the online portion, and a lot of that we know we don't do. So we'll bring in other agencies for those pieces that we don't provide. So they do help us a lot with branding, look and feel, color palettes, that sort of thing. Traditional agencies, that's something that we have found often, is that they do try to take that messaging that they used on their brochures or their print ads and just copy it online. And it doesn't work. It has to be very specifically written for the online audience, especially when it comes to search engine optimization. The keywords and the words that you use in your content are extremely important. And a lot of times in a print ad, you're speaking very vaguely. You know, we're great, we're awesome. Well, that doesn't really tell Google anything about what you do. Keyword research, they'll bring us in to actually research what keywords are most popularly searched on. One of the areas that this is most often used by the traditional agencies is when a client is coming up with a new product or service or a new department and they don't know what to name it. They may have 2 or 3 different options on this naming of this new department, and they come to us to actually see what keywords people utilize around that service, and then they'll use that information to determine which of the 3 that they're picking from works best, which ones that the consumers might actually most identify with. We also work with them on optimization or creation of website content, which again, traditional agencies, they do really good content development, but it does need to be optimized for web, which is very, very different process. And web analytics, we do everything from helping them set it up on a website for a client, to troubleshooting what's going on with an analytics program, setting up goals within an analytics program. We've even come in and helped them set up templates for monthly reporting, which is something we provide all clients. And another thing that falls under this that has also recently become very popular is for us to come in and actually just do a site audit of a client site. A client may say, hey, my website's not performing, I can't find myself in Google. So the traditional agency will actually ask us to come in and just do an audit of the site, do a competitive analysis, let them know what's going on in the industry online. And then press release optimization. So doing a press release and then releasing it online, there is an optimization component to that so that it is picked up by the search engines. I wanted to specifically get into website design companies. Those are slightly different than the traditional marketing companies, but I did want to point out how they should be partnering with an SEO agency. Today, any website that's developed, created, designed, must include an SEO element. If you're designing a website that doesn't even consider the algorithms, doesn't consider Google, then what is really the point? Nobody's ever going to find it. It's not doing its job. And unfortunately, we're still coming across this a lot. We have clients come to us and they're like, I just spent $15,000 on a new site. It's 3 months old and I cannot find myself in Google anymore. My old site actually performed better in Google than this new one, and I just put all this money into it. And we come in and we're like, yeah, because everything they did, Google hates. So making sure that any website design that you're doing or developing includes an SEO element is going to keep your clients happier and coming back more often. And this is, again, is something that we do a lot of, partnering with website design specific companies. They have found a way to broaden their service base with us by actually adding our services into their service line or into their proposals. Some of the things that we help them with are things that they don't want to do anyway, but they don't really consider, and that are very important for SEO. And just listed some of them, the 301 redirect map, content creation, which developers really don't ever want to touch. They can't even really write emails. And analytics installation, page title, meta tag creation, all of that's very important for SEO, and it's all stuff that they don't want to do anyway. So we come in and we offer to help out. In terms of our relationships with them, here's some tips, same kind of thing. Include the SEO agency from the very, very beginning. Because once you've started development on a site, even then it's kind of hard to go back and SEO it. Just like if we come in and work on an existing site, there are some elements for SEO that we can't address once a site has launched. But there are a lot of things that we can put into place before a site launches to make sure that it is search engine friendly and make sure that it's performing even better than the site before. Same thing before, provide detailed timelines, and this is even most important in terms of the, let's be realistic. We've had some clients who are like, I want my website to launch in 6 weeks, and we always kind of laugh because that rarely happens. Same thing, create a clear process for communications, as we said before with the traditional ones. And another one would be provide access to the development site as soon as possible to your SEO agency. We've had some web design companies where they don't even give us access to the site till after it launches, and again, it's really hard for us to go in and do our work once that site has launched. And as before, keep the focus on the client. So we wanted to go into a little bit of a case study. So our relationship with the website design agencies. When a website is redesigned and then relaunched, it will always see a drop in organic rankings. Always. It happens. If you're relaunching your site, once you've relaunched it and Google sees that, it's going to take you out of the organic listings, at least off the first page, for some time until it reestablishes your site, reestablishes the content, and makes sure that your site is still what it says it was before. Whenever a web design company brings us in, we can make this much less dramatic for the client. We can make sure that the site bounces back much faster and actually higher than it was before. So here's a couple of examples in terms of data. So this company, the website launched, the company did not use us. So you can see here that a drop happened in January. November, it launched around in December. And you can see that drop and how long it lasted. It took until about the summer of that next year for the site to bounce back in terms of its ranking and its organic traffic. Now, in one where we were involved, it's quite the opposite. You can see that it dropped, which we expected, but only for 1 month. So it dropped in that month and it bounced right back, and it actually, in terms of the rankings, bounced back higher than it was before. So in terms of sales, in terms of traffic to the site, in terms of placement in the search engines, this is something you want to see. The other one, not so much, because 3 months of lower organic ranking, lower traffic, really does yield lower sales. Now we're going to get into a little bit of how to find the right digital agency partner, and it is a lot like dating, unfortunately. So here are tips. So first we would say meet that agency face to face. We've had some agencies where they want to, it's more remote or they're across the country. We still find a way to meet them face to face because you really don't know how well you're going to mesh with that other company until you meet them. And if they're showing up even dressed different, or how they present is different than how you present, maybe they're more professional, you're more casual, you just want to make sure there's a good mesh. Ask them to provide references and examples. This is huge for digital. If they can't provide you example reporting, which is one of the examples I would hit most on when asking for digital agencies, then that's a big red flag, which is the next slide we'll get into a little bit. And references. Obviously, like with anything, if they can't provide a reference, then that's pretty questionable. And look for those that specialize in servicing the same industry that you do. You know, like Joanna said, we love working with healthcare, legal, and higher education. That doesn't mean we don't work with all industries and all size clients, but if we come across a website design company that works, you know, exclusively with lawyers, well then that's a great fit for us because we already know that industry, we understand it, so, you know, it's just a good match. Some of the red flags for digital agencies, again, like I said, unable to provide references and examples, especially reporting. And I know I'm harping on that a little bit, but we have come across quite a few clients who come to us and they will have been working with, you know, a paid search marketing company for a year and never ever saw a report. And this is just bad business. It's a bad industry practice, and unfortunately it happens a lot. It actually makes our job much harder because we're doing the right thing already, but this client has this bad taste and they just think paid search doesn't work, and it's because they never got a report. They don't even know where their money went. Reporting is just huge for digital because it's always been there. It's standard. They should be providing those. Guarantees. If an SEO company ever provides you with a guarantee, turn around and walk out. I can tell you that we'll do our best and we know what will, you know, hopefully lead to that result, but a guarantee in SEO is a reason to turn around and walk out. And we still see this today, which is mind-boggling to me. And then any digital or SEO company that offers SEO packages that include a finite number of keywords or pages on the site. If you're truly going to SEO a site, you need to make sure like every page has to be optimized. It's not just optimizing like 5 of your main pages. Google looks at the site as a whole. So any company that's saying, oh, we're only going to do 10 pages, we're only going to do 10 keywords, that's another red flag and a reason to probably not partner with them. So learn from our experience. These are just some additional tips for partnering with digital agencies based on some of the things that we've encountered. The first one is a fun one. This happened a few years ago, luckily. But don't hide your partnership from your client. We actually were brought in by a traditional agency who responded to an RFP and told the client, no, we don't use any contractors. We do everything in-house. We don't use anybody out. Everything's done in-house. But they had promised them paid search, and they don't do paid search. So, which is also one of the reasons we got out of our agency. They like to make all these promises for things they don't do. So they brought us in and didn't tell the client. They actually went as far as to
they didn't tell us that they hadn't told the client either, because that's kind of key.
They kind of did, later. But they went as far as to give us business cards for their agency. They even set up a fake office for us. I went over and I was like, oh look, there's my name on the wall. And it was just very strange, so that if the client happened to visit, it looked like we worked there. It was the weirdest thing. And of course, the client found out.
It's St. Louis, it's small.
Yeah, and it didn't matter that we were doing an awesome job, because we were. They were just mad that they were lied to. And how they found out is also just as humorous. We had an intern who was working for us, went to interview with the client, and had on her resume that she had worked on their business. And they're like, really? Because we don't know how this company does our stuff. How are you doing our stuff? So they found out from an interview with one of our interns. That was a good time. So they will find out. So don't hide it, be open, and that is really our general practice with everything. Negotiate general pricing structures in advance, but work out specifics on a project-by-project basis. We actually just went through this with a website design company that we just met. We work out general pricing structures, so we know, if the site's X number of pages, this is generally what we, charge for SEO. They let us know that if a site is this number of pages, this is what they charge for design, and vice versa. But we both know that specifics will change that pricing, so we don't ever make promises to a client if we go in and then hold the other agency accountable. But we have general idea of what things will cost, so that when we go into a client, we can say, oh yeah, we can do a website design for you and it will be about this amount or this range. Markups. We don't mind if the other agency marks us up. marks up our pricing, but we have been in instances where they marked us up so much that they priced us out of the job. It just became an unrealistic number. So markups are fine. Just make sure that, perhaps
Realistic.
check with the digital agency to see what that kind of work is actually going for, so that you're not pricing yourself out of the job. Let the digital team be part of the pitch presentation. This one is really big for us. I would never go in and tell a traditional agency that I can sell a billboard ad or a radio spot or a print ad, because I can't. I will be honest and say I have no idea how that's done. I don't know pricing. I would never go in and pitch it. If I had a client interested in that service, I would bring in someone who is an expert in that and have them pitch it. But there's been many times when we're working with a partner who says, no, we got it, we'll present it, it's all good. And then 2 weeks later we hear back from them and no, we didn't get the job. And it's because, and really it's not offensive, but it's not what you do. It's not what the traditional agency does. Again, we aren't saying that we do what you do, so don't say that you can actually pitch what we do, because there are a lot of nuances in digital media and a lot of things that have to be communicated that unless you're in it, you really can't evoke that to the client during a pitch. And lastly, but probably most importantly, is refer clients to each other as often as possible. This will keep that relationship going. It will keep the romance going in the relationship if you're constantly giving each other business. And we often will have a client who doesn't even want our services necessarily. They'll contact us for just a website or just a press release, and we'll just send them on to another agency, because we don't do it, we aren't going to fake our way through it, and we have no problem just referring them to somebody else, somebody that we trust. And trust really is what it all comes down to. So finding that right relationship with someone that you trust isn't going to steal your business or steal your ideas. That really is probably the key in all of this.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.